because every hour of the day we were doing something. It was 4 hours of mandatory practice in the morning. After lunch, everybody goes off on their own schedules and does some combination of private lessons, chamber music, orchestra, chorus. All day, just everything music.
I think the Mr. and Mrs. Perlman kind of discouraged the parents reaching out to the kids during the camp, because I think they've seen so many of the children ruined by, parents' over-involvement.
Yeah, which can happen.
So, she kindly emailed all the parents and said, don't worry, you don't hear from them, but they are in good hands and they're having a great time.
Wow.
Yeah, and so after the camp ended, they picked me up. It's on an island. It's on what's called Shelter Island. It's on the very end of Long Island, so you have to take a ferry to get there. So I was completely separated from the outside world, and I was in this magical bubble of music and inspiration and camaraderie and all this other stuff. So I had no words for them when they picked me up. I was sitting there on the ferry. I felt like I was at in the end of some dramatic romance drama or something. I had that one tear falling down. I don't know when I'm going to see these people again. Right? These are now my best friends, and they were all, or not all of them, but many of them were already enrolled in the Juilliard pre-college program. So this meeting that we had arranged with the Perlmans happened that day when we left the festival. They said, come to our home, in East Hampton, and then we'll have a discussion. And so we get there, and this is the only part of the conversation that I remember, because it was really the only part of the conversation that I was asked to speak in. But we got there, we sat down in their living room. You guys were probably tripping, because we spent years admiring Itzhak Perlman, the icon
I've seen him
violinist.
on CD.
Right.
And we're sitting in his living room, and he and his wife were sitting there across from us, and we sit down, and Mrs. Perlman comes in and says, we sit down, and the first thing she says is, Randall, what do you want to do next?
I say, in your perfect world,
Right,
what would you like to do?
right. And I immediately, without even thinking about it, said, I want to go to Juilliard Pre-College. In my head, I'm not thinking, I want weekly lessons with Itzhak Perlman. I'm thinking, I'm going to hang out with my friends every weekend at Pre-College in New York. And one thing led to another. This is end of August, right? The school year starts in mid-September. So already in that time, they arranged for me to have a scholarship, they arranged for a sponsor to cover my flights, and they arranged for a sponsor to cover my housing. So from the end of August to the beginning of September, we go from not having a teacher and asking for advice to me flying every week now instead of every month from Memphis to New York to go to Juilliard Pre-College, which is essentially a Saturday school. It's like a 1 day of what you would experience in the Juilliard College program condensed into a Saturday every week. So you go, it's like an 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. day. Same thing, kind of like what we're doing at the Perlman program, which is practice, lessons, chamber music, except now we have music theory classes, ear training classes, music history classes. And then at the end of the day, I go out and get Chinese food with all the friends that I made over the summer, right? So this is where I feel like my life really took a turn to the unusual. Because freshman year in high school, the year before this all happened, I'm sitting in basketball tryout meetings and football, you know what I mean? I want to be involved and have a high school experience, and then suddenly I'm gone every single weekend from sophomore to senior year. So it was a really, like I said, there was a lot of luck. There was a lot of serendipity involved in the whole thing. And once I started going to New York, I was very grateful for the fact that my friends who I'd made in Memphis, who had nothing to do with my life and music, there's always this trope of okay, music is not the cool thing. Oh, you a band nerd, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I never felt or received any of that, right? My friends sort of started to just understand, okay, we can't go to his house this weekend because he's going to New York. We got to find somebody else basketball to go and play on. But going to start studying with Mr. Perlman, that was kind of where things started to really just totally shift. And obviously 3 years in pre-college, having a single day every week where I was basically going through a college curriculum, kind of set me up to transition naturally and directly into the undergraduate program. And basically from there, I went from pre-college for 3 years to undergrad for 4 years to master's for another 2 years, and then straight into a postgraduate diploma for another 2 years after that. So it was almost 10 years if you include pre-college that I was there at Juilliard.
They have enough of you.
They've had enough of me, and I had enough of them.
And then this process, let's talk about the Arlington experience, right? You were in high school.
Right.
Having to go to New York.
Right.
You had some support there from the principal. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The principal, his name is Dr. Cousins. I don't remember what his first name was. He's for sure retired by now. He was a trombone major. knew who Itzhak Perlman was. So once I started flying for lessons, he caught wind of it and said, "Oh, you're going to see Itzhak Perlman on the weekends? Man, don't you? I'll talk to your teachers. You go. You go and you do your thing." And we've had conversations with parents every now and then who've been interested in, okay, what does it take, right? We want our child to go to such and such a university, right? We want them to get such and such an SAT score. How do we marry that with an elite level of musicianship? Juilliard doesn't require ACTs or SAT scores. You go there, and if you can play, if you go in there and you play that 20-minute audition, and these people say, okay, wow, this person has a voice, right? They really put a lot of time and energy into developing this voice, and we think we can go further with it. That's how you get accepted. They don't look really hard at your transcripts unless you're like on the borderline of, okay, maybe they can play, but let's see if they're smart too.
But at the same time, when he was at Arlington, of course, he would miss some dates. Because, I mean, it's over the weekend, but sometimes the flight gets delayed or, you know, inevitably he has to miss the class. But I made sure, like, if he missed the class, I'll take him at 6:30 in the morning before the school starts, because they have a tutoring session. So he won't be behind in his class. It's, you know, okay, the principal is giving him, you know, such a privilege so he can pursue on weekends. So I didn't want him to take it for granted. You know, academically, you have to keep it up too. So, I mean, I was so, you know, kind of proud of him for that. He didn't complain going at 6:30 in the morning, drop him off.
Right.
And then at the same time, my teachers knew why I was doing that.
Right.
You know, and as I got farther along and as exams started to get longer, I remember my senior year, my English teacher passed me through my final exam because I was not going to be there to take it. And I was going to be gone the following week when she offered makeup exams. And she was like, you know what? You're not going to use this English exam for anything. You know what I mean? So I just felt like that's what I mean about there was a lot of luck involved.
Right.
I could have easily had a teacher who was like, I don't care what you're doing. This exam is the most important thing for you right now, right? You can't complete high school without taking your English final. You know? But I think everyone around me just, you know, by the grace of God, had this perspective and this understanding of what I was doing, what I was trying to do, what I needed and what I didn't need. And I think that continued through my years at Juilliard. And it really has informed the way that I interact with young people now in the position where I'm in, to have the opportunity to share some of this perspective and some of this knowledge that I've gained over time, which is that, look, the best thing that you can do is put your head down and get the hard work done early, right? Because if you don't, at some point in life, that hard work is gonna catch up to you, and you have to get it done. You know, and I think my teachers didn't confuse the hard work that I was putting into violin for effort that was lacking in my schoolwork. And so I'm really grateful for the whole community there that I was surrounded with at Arlington, because they were just as big a part, you know, of the successes that I've been able to have as the musical side of my.
You say community, and that's something that is so important to Prizm in general. It's in our mission, you know, we build diverse community. And the story leads me to, you know, the narrative of it takes a village, right? You heard the story, you heard the steps, the challenges that they faced, and it was this village of people that came together to nurture, you know, what you're going to hear tonight, which is just an absolutely beautiful music. But it really does take a village to do anything, really. And this is just one example. And I told Ralph, as he was heading off to the airport yesterday, I said, this is one heck of a book. And, you know, it's, you know, whatever you call it, from here to there, whatever you want to do, it's a really encouraging story because, you know, I mean, the time commitment is just unbelievable, right? I mean, I take my kids to lessons, but, you know, they're 20 minutes away. You know, that's very different than an hour and a half drive, a 3-hour drive, staying overnight, flying to New York, right? And there was a point where you didn't travel with him to New York. He went.
Right. Once he was in pre-college,
Pre-college,
you know, he was able to travel.
He's able to travel by himself, and so that's a huge commitment from, you know, a parent standpoint to trust your young kid to go and do what is right and not go to a big city where anything is possible and still still pick up that violin, study it, right, and come
Right.
back home and continue to do it.
Right.
And I think that's really important. I know you have a concert, so I know y'all likely have a question or two. I want to leave time for that, and then we got to let Randall, got to let him rest up for the concert. So I want to open it up for questions right now for Randall or Gigi that any of you may have. Don't be shy.
Have you gone back to studying Russian style at all, or you kind of?
I think it's kind of a part of how I work now. I do, yeah. I think to build up that kind of tough skin and to build up that resilience to someone else's input translates later on to building up the resilience to be that picky on yourself, right? And I think with something like music where there is no perfecting it, right? Perlman he just turned 80 this year and he's still practicing. You know what I mean? There's never a point where you say, I got it, I figured it out, I've mastered it. And I think that kind of incessant, let's do it again, you know, let's try it again a different way, really has stuck with me. So I'm grateful as challenging and sometimes deflating as some of those lessons were amidst the whole Russian school. I think it has kind of found its way into my system.
I have a question. Actually, so we were at the symphony when you played at the Schneider Center, and we stayed for the Q&A after that. And I was amazed about your violin, but I was wondering if you could tell all of us about your violin.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you guys are in for a treat. Actually, there's 4 very special instruments that you're going to hear in the quartet, and maybe I'll have the guys tell you about their instruments. But my instrument is a Stradivarius. It was made in 1708, and if you know anything about Strads, you know that it's not mine because I cannot afford that. I picked the wrong career path for that, and that's quite ironic, I think, given that the people who can afford them can't play them.
Right.
But it's on loan to me from the Samsung Foundation, the washing machine phone company. They have an arts and culture foundation in Korea that has bought a small collection of these caliber of instruments, and they loan them out on a 5-year basis to artists who travel and perform internationally. So yeah, it's been with me it'll be 3 years in January, and I think one thing that anyone who's not a violinist or even really a violinist of a certain skill level could not really ever wrap their mind around is how each of these instruments really has a personality, and they really are. I'm not the kind of person to personify these instruments, although you did tell me at some point to talk to my violin when I was not happy with how it was sounding, and I did because she's been right most of the time. So I was like, maybe she's right about this one. So I sat my violin down and I kind of talked to it like this, you know. But you know, it's actually taught me a lot about my playing. Each one of these violins, they're 300 years old. So in a sense, they know what they like more than you do, right? They've been played by who knows how many different people over the years, and you have to be flexible and willing to adjust the way that you play and the way that you approach the instrument. And in the same sense, I think that instrument over time, you know, loosens up to you a little bit and gets used to the way that you like to play and the way that you like to approach it. So yeah, it's taught me a lot. I think it's opened up a lot of different possibilities and a lot of different ideas in terms of how I play. So yeah, you'll hear that instrument tonight, and like I said, there are some other special instruments in the quartet, so I'll make sure the guys tell you about those too.
And you met these gentlemen that you're playing with tonight where?
At the Perlman Music Program. These were guys who were part of the community that made me go, okay, of course this is what I want to do. So we've been friends since 2011, 2012. We're all between 28 and 30, so it's about half of our lives now that we've known each other and played together, and we have many of the same tastes in how we listen and how we process and how we appreciate music. And so that sense of chemistry is always a lot of fun. We don't get to play together all year because we're all doing very different things, which again, they'll tell you about. But you know, I also maintain a pretty busy schedule as a soloist, playing for charity and traveling around and doing things on my own. So periods like this where we have the opportunity to sit down and rehearse and put together a program are really special for us. So I'm sure you'll get a sense for how much fun we have together.
Well, Randall, Gigi, thank you so much for
Thank you.
being here.
Yes,
Thank you all. let him get some rest. We're gonna let him, you know, get his colleagues together, and Gigi, she's gonna be in here with you all. And it's just wonderful to have them here. I just need to say that. So we'll take about 10 minutes and then we'll start the concert, all right? Thank you.